excelência do setor plástico para a retomada da indústria na Itália e Europa, com o Dr. Lorenzo Tavazzi. Tavazzi é diretor da prática de cenários de inteligência da EUROPA House, Ambroseti, grupo profissional fundado em 1965, trabalhou no âmbito dos projetos de estratégia e internacionalização para empresas como ABB, BASF, Unilever, Plastics Europa, Itália, e é responsável por estudos da retomada do setor plástico da Europa. Com vocês, Dr. Lorenzo Tavazzi.
Ladies and gentlemen, very good morning. Oops, I didn't say very bad beginning. Bom dia, senhoras and senhores. Unfortunately, my Portuguese and here, so allow me to speak in English. First of all, I would like to say that I feel very honored to be here with you today and to enjoy such an important event. So let me thank you, the organizer, in particular, Mr. Smith, for inviting me. My task today is to present you the results of a resource study we did recently on the plastic industry in Europe and in Italy. I hope that these results and the recommendations we put forward to the European policymakers could be of some interest and maybe of some use here in the Brazilian context, and maybe some what inspirational to move forward to policy and new strategic development of your plastic industry. Well, before entering into the details of my presentation, allow me just to give a couple of words of the background on the European Ambroseti, the company which I work for. It's a management consulting company headquartered in Italy and has been established more than 51 years ago in 1965. It's one of the oldest management consulting companies operating in Europe. We have also an international presence. I hope you can see the red dots there. And we had, unfortunately I say we had, up to 5 years ago, also offices here in Brazil. Unfortunately, due to the economic downturn and the international crisis, we have been forced to close them down, at least momentarily. But we do still have a rep office in São Paulo. The European Ambroseti is also quite renowned as to be a think tank. According to the international think tank rankings, we are number 1 as far as think tank in Italy, number 4 in Europe, and number 10 among the most influential think tank at the global level. We are advised on many governments, not only in Europe, but in many other countries of the world. And lastly, the European Ambroseti is, again, quite renowned on international level to be an organizer of events and high-level forums. We organize every year almost 300 events for top politicians and business leaders. In particular, one flagship forum, the most important one, I would say, is known as the European Ambroseti Forum in Chernobyl, or Villa d'Este Forum. Every year we host a limited number of 250 prime ministers, Nobel Prize winners, gurus, international gurus, and business leaders, and we discuss with them behind closed doors the outlook of the economy in Europe, in Italy, and on a global level. And the forum marked in 2016 its 32nd edition, so it's quite an old forum. And in one of the latest editions of our forum in Villa d'Este, we discussed the results of the research study we did on plastic. And we discussed it with the managing director of the International Monetary Fund, Mr. Lagarde, with the Vice President of the European Commission, Mr. Antonio Tajani. Just to know, the European Commission is the governing body of the European Union, which comprises, as of today, 28 member states, which will be 27 in the near future because of the decision of the UK, United Kingdom, to leave the European Union. And we discussed also, we present the results to the Italian Minister of Labour and to the Italian Minister of Economic Development and Industry. Well, getting into the details of our research, we've been asked to carry out the study, quite a comprehensive one, by a group of stakeholders in the plastic industry in Europe. You can see down their logo, we had both the European and National Association of Plastics Industry, and we involve also several players. We had, for example, the Versailles Group, which is the chemical company of the ENI Group. We had Total, BASF, and Basel, and many others. The task we set for our research, we can read them there in the slide, have been quite clear, not say easy, but quite clear. One, to make a comprehensive strategic assessment of the state of play of the industry, the plastic industry in Europe and in Italy, face to face with the international competitive challenges. Second task was to analyze and understand the role of the plastic value chain in the economy and the industry of Europe. And third, we have been asked to help to shape a possible vision of the plastic industry in the near future and the long term in Europe, and to devise some recommendations in order to make this vision happen. We're talking about development because, I'm sorry to say this, but it's the reality, Europe is not living one of its brightest periods. We are suffering the economic downturn after the international crisis. We have lost, unfortunately, relevant GDP in real terms, and we are still struggling, the policymakers in particular are still struggling to find out possible and effective solution policies in order to ignite and to boost a new economic growth. You see there, for example, I hope you can read it, is the orange line, the EU28 performance in terms of GDP growth. You can easily see the difference, and we are ranking quite below other economies. Another issue we are facing today in Europe is a lack of investment. We have calculated that nowadays Europe suffers from an investment gap of more than 300 billion euros per year. It's a huge amount of money, and it's quite easy to understand that without investment, it's basically impossible to have sustained economic growth in the future. And finally, the last issue we are facing in Europe is a productivity issue. Again, productivity is another fundamental pillar for the economic growth. And unfortunately, Europe, the European Union, more or less all the 28 member states are suffering from the productivity level. But most worryingly, in particular, the 5 major European economies, namely Italy, France, UK, Germany, Spain, are suffering even more. And you can see there the comparison between the productivity level of the European countries compared to the United States, and the gap is quite clear. And I'm sorry to say that probably also you in Brazil are suffering from the same productivity issue. Brazil is the yellow line over there. Why talking about economic growth, in particular, why plastic? Because we do believe, we strongly believe, honestly, that plastic is the material of the future, or at least among the material of the future. We can find plastic and plastic products in our everyday life. It's very clear. But most importantly, we can find, and we do find, plastic and plastic products also as an intermediate input of a number of other industries, just to name a few: electronics, construction, biochemical, health, energy, and many others. A third important feature of plastic is versatility. Plastics are very versatile materials with a lot of applications. Just to give you a very small example, but to me quite evocative of the potentialities of plastic, you see there in the bottom right part of the slide, money. Why money? Because last September, the Bank of England, the Central Bank of England, has started to issue plastic banknotes with a very clear vision to replace all the paper, the actual paper banknotes in circulation within 5-6 years. And why this decision? Very simple, because the plastic banknotes are healthier, are more durable, and are cheaper. Just to give you one number, in Europe we spend for the cost of cash, the printing of cash, the maintenance of cash, and the end of life of cash, more than 60 billion euros per year. And it's quite unbelievable, a huge amount of money just for cash in our world. And with the plastic banknotes, probably the figure will be very much lower. And the Bank of England, that you know, is not alone. As of today, we have more than 20 countries around the world that are issuing plastic banknotes. And again, a very kind example, very small, very little, but quite evocative. And it's not surprising that plastic has been growing steadily. You can see there the plastic production at global level since 1950. We have an industry that is experiencing uninterrupted growth for more than 50 years. And we calculated that the plastic industry, plastic production at global level, grew in the period from 1950 to now by 9% on average per year, which I assure you is a very high growth rate. And it's not only a very high growth rate per se, but it's very high compared to other alternative materials. For example, we focus one of our analyses on the period 1970-2014. And in the period, the global production of plastic grew by 6% per year. Steel, 2.3%. Aluminium, 3.7%. And in 1989, the plastic production at global level overcame the steel production at global level. Again, I think the trend is quite impressive. But the trend will be likely to be there also in the future, not only the near future, but also the far future. We analyzed the relation between plastic consumption and fundamental variables, in particular GDP growth and population growth. And we discovered that there exists a very, very strong and positive correlation between the two variables. In other words, when the more countries grow in terms of economic output or in terms of population, the more plastic will be used. It's very simple. We apply our statistical model to a cluster of countries, you can see there in the table, and with very few exceptions, by 2025, the year 2025, we will have a double-digit growth of per capita consumption. In particular, in the fast-growing economies in Latin America as well, and also in Brazil, our projections are for an increase of more than 34%. Of course, are just projections and not the truth per se, but I think that the message and the trends are quite clear. Getting to Europe, Europe was, and unfortunately was, the #1 area in the world for plastic production. In 2010, this leadership is overtaken by China, and in 2014, also the NAFTA countries, namely the US, Canada, and Mexico, overtook the position of Europe. Sorry to say that for Europe and the European, now we are in the third position with a market share of approximately 20%. And you can easily understand why the plastic stakeholders in Europe are a bit worried. Oh, sorry, I don't know what we've done. Okay. Having said that, with this background, we analyzed the plastic industry in Europe by developing a strategic assessment framework comprised of 4 pillars. We assess the capability of the industry in Europe, the plastic industry in Europe, to create value added. We analyze the spillover effect of this industry on the rest of the economy. We also try to understand how and to what extent the plastic industry in Europe could contribute to innovation. And finally, the green square there, how and to what extent the plastic industry could contribute to sustainability. Getting to the first pillar, value creation, we carried out a quite extensive research among the 28 European countries, considering the whole value chain of plastic: production, the converting industry, machinery, and recycling. And it's been quite a huge task because, quite incredibly, in several countries in Europe, plastic is not considered within the national statistics as an industrial sector in itself, but it is included in a broader sector, which is chemical. And so it's quite difficult to find out, among these countries, Italy, for example, to find out specific data for the plastic industry. Anyway, we have created a comprehensive database, and the figures are there. In Europe, as of today, we are considering, again, the world value, the plastic value chain. We have more than 62,000 companies operating, with an aggregate turnover of more than 300 billion euros per year. Just to give you a comparison, 300 billion euros per year is double the size of the turnover of the entire textile and clothing industry, and double the size of the pharmaceutical sector. Quite impressive, I would say. It's quite impressive also the contribution of the plastic industry to the development in terms of job creation in Europe. And we are talking about 1.5 million people employed in the plastic industry. But we wanted to understand the real value of the plastic industry also in comparison with the other industrial sectors of Europe. And in particular, we considered the 28 industrial sectors that we have in Europe. And we analyzed them under 4 perspectives: the economic relevance, the productivity, the investments of the sector, and the profitability of each sector. We created a synthetic indicator, and the results are shown there. You see the plastic industry in the narrow sense because of the problem of statistics I mentioned before. It ranks 15 out of 28 industrial sectors, which is more or less in the middle, which is not bad per se. But considering all the data that are not included in national statistics in the plastic industry sector, and including the broader chemical sector, we are talking of a macro sector which is worth the 4th position. And again, the message is that in Europe, quite incredibly, probably, but not so well known, plastic is one of the pivotal industrial sectors. Moving forward in the second pillar of our analysis, the spillover effect of the plastic industry on the economy of Europe. We utilize the input-output method. I don't want to bore you with technical details, but just to give you the background, input-output methods are a very useful instrument, able to assess how, to what extent, a single sector is linked with the other sector within the economy. Well, we applied this methodology to the plastic industry with reference to Europe again, and the results are there. I would like to spend just a couple of words and remark these results because to me are one of the fundamental outcomes of our study. The message here is that the plastic industry has one of the highest multiplier effects on the rest of the economy Consider all, in comparison, considering all the other industrial sectors. You see on the left here the multiplier of GDP. For every 100 euros invested or created in the plastic sector, the total effect on the economy is an activation of 238 euros. Even higher is the multiplier of employment on the right side. For every 100 jobs created in the plastic industry, you will have 274 jobs in the rest of the economy. To me, these figures are a very strong case in favor of the plastic industry and a very crystal clear message to policymakers. If you want to create a development, you have to invest among the sectors, of course, and the other priority sectors in plastic. If you do not do so, and you have a weakening industry in the plastic sector, not only you risk to lose a very important industry per se, but you are weakening the entire industrial and economic system. We've also calculated the multiplier of other important industrial sectors. I don't want to spend too much time on the slide, but again, the message is quite striking because plastic, the multiplier of plastic in terms of GDP is much higher compared to the construction multiplier. And construction is traditionally seen as one of the pillars on economy because it's a sector that is able to create a lot of jobs, a lot of turnover. Well, the plastic industry has a multiplier higher than construction. And even more surprisingly, the plastic industry has a multiplier higher than ICT. Well, our analysis focuses not only on the effect of the plastic industry on the general economy, but we wanted to understand how, to what extent, plastic industry could contribute to manufacturing sector. In Europe, if you remember one of the first slide I show you, we are seeking an industrial renaissance, meaning that our industrial base, unfortunately, is shrinking. So the policymakers are struggling to have more industry, more industrial activities, more manufacturing. And the European Commission has set a very ambitious target to be reached by the year 2020 to have from the manufacturing sector at least 20% of the European GDP produced. We have calculated that by reaching this goal, we could create 1.34 trillion euros of additional turnover and 24.3 million of new jobs. So we are talking about huge numbers and huge opportunities. Well, we analyzed the role, the possible role of the plastic industry to reach this goal. We developed a statistical regression model focused on the period 1992-2012. And we discovered that for every 10% of increase in the plastic industry value added, this corresponds to an increase of 4.4% of value added in the total manufacturing sector. Again, with reference to the European context, the message here is if you want to have more industry, again, among the priority sector, you are to invest in the plastic industry. Moving forward, innovation. Innovation is needed to say that fundamental. Without innovation, basically, you are not able to compete as of today. And we analyzed the role of the plastic sector in terms of innovative performance. In this case, we considered not only the 28 industrial sectors of Europe, but we considered also the services for a total amount of 36 sectors. Well, the good news for plastic industry and for Europe as well is that in the period 2005-2014, plastic industry was among the top 5 major and most innovative sectors. And every year, the plastic industry produced more than 6,000 new patents. Just to give you some additional numbers. Only in Italy we have more than 4,000 researchers employed in R&D activities of the plastic industry. Considering also Germany and France, we have more than 21,000 high-skilled research employed in R&D activities of the plastic industry. And all in all, the plastic industry invests every year in Europe more than 3 billion euros only, again, for R&D activities. Very serious money. But it's not just a matter of investment. A lot of innovations are stemming from the plastic industry in Europe. I would like to show you this example because I found it quite interesting and evocative. You see on the right side of the slide an house. Real house is in Amsterdam, in Holland, but the peculiarity is that the house is made 100% by plastic. It's been built by using a 3D printed technology, and as of today, it's still just a showcase. You can enter, but you cannot live there. But it's quite easy to understand the potentialities behind this technology. This format of plastic house, it will be able to completely disrupt the construction industry, not only in Europe, but at global level. And I have to say that this site, this plastic house, has been visited by many politicians. Even the President of the United States, probably you can recognize him, Mr. Obama, visited this house. Moving forward, the fourth pillar of our strategic assessment model is sustainability. Again, I don't want to enter into much detail with this slide, which is a bit complicated, but the European Commission, the governing body of Europe, has set a number of binding policy targets to be reached by the year 2020 in order to create the condition to make Europe the most sustainable economy in the world. And within this framework, we analyze the potential role of the plastic industry. In particular, we have identified 4 major areas of contribution. 2 of them I've already explained to you, the manufacturing, sustainability, and the R&D activities. But other 2 are very important. Energy efficiency. The European Commission has set a target of an increase of 20% of energy efficiency by the year 2020. And another binding target is CO2 emission. Again, the European Commission set a target of a decrease in this case of 20% of the CO2 emission level compared to the 1990 level. Well, plastics can contribute a lot. These numbers are not our analysis, but it's an analysis carried out by the European Plastic Association, which involves a number of major universities in several countries in Europe. And they assess, it's very interesting, they assess that by replacing the actual product made by plastic with the very same product but made with other materials, glass, paper or others, we consider of course a cluster of products, well, this could lead to a net increase of almost 60% in terms of energy usage for the production of the very same product. And consequently, we could have more of 124 million tons of CO2 emission. And let me say that again, the message is very clear. Plastic is definitely not against environment. It's true, the opposite. Plastic is pro-environment. It's a very sustainable material. The issue is how to deal properly with plastic. But plastic is not alien per se. Given this background of analysis, and I'm going to finish, we formulated four key recommendations for the European policymaker and for the national policymakers. First, plastic is a very important industry, we have seen, but needs to be sustained with specific policies, specific industrial policies. In the context of Europe, in the European context, we identified at least three major concerns, three major critical areas that should be addressed with a specific industrial sectorial policy. First of all, the cost of energy. In Europe, we have, unfortunately, quite high cost of energy for the industrial consumers. In particular, in some countries, among them Italy, we have very, very high cost of energy. You see the comparison of the energy cost index in Italy, 100, which is 4 times higher compared to the one of the US. And this poses a very relevant burden on the balance sheet of our plastic producer and plastic industry. Well, we urge the European Commission to take serious actions in order to guarantee the energy-intensive industries to have access at reasonable prices to energy. And I'm happy to say that something has happened. In particular, for example, in Italy, the government has issued a specific policy in order to guarantee certain level, affordable level of cost of energy, not only for the industry of plastic, but for the energy-intensive industry. The second issue is investment in innovation. We have seen before, innovation is fundamental. The plastic industry invests a lot, but it could be even more. And we advise the European Commission to put in place some preferential taxation scheme or other instruments, fiscal credit, or other that can be implemented in order to create the condition for the industry, for the plastic industry, and in general for the other industry, to make their investment in a more effective and profitable way. Again, I have to say that many countries in Europe have already put in place this scheme, and this is leading to a higher rate of investment in R&D activities. Finally, the research programs. In Europe, we are quite innovative, but the technology transfer mechanisms are not as strong as they could be. And that's a real problem. The linkage between the academia, the research centers, and the industry is not so strong, and or at least is weaker compared, for example, the US. Again, we urge the European Commission to work along with the relevant association of the plastic industry, the private players, and the academia in order to create more effective mechanism of technology transfer. The second recommendation to me is probably the most important one. Education, education, education. Plastic is not vaccine. In Europe, according to a recent survey, more than 43% of the people, of the Europeans, mistrust plastic. And in this context, it's very difficult for policymakers to prompt policies in favor of the plastic industry. But the situation is fueled by a lack of information and a widespread ignorance. And that's why we strongly urge the European Commission to put in place an educational campaign working shoulder by shoulder with the plastic industry, with the private player and their association, in order to create even more awareness on the reality of plastic, on the contribution of plastic, and on how to behave with plastic properly. The third recommendation is to exploit the the entire value chain and, of plastics. In particular, the end-of-life phase. We do reckon the end-of-life phase as a very, very important opportunities, not from an environmental point of view, but also from an economic point of view. We calculated that by fostering the end-of-life phase, meaning the reuse of plastic, in other words, Europe could create 400,000 new jobs and save more than 72 billion euros per year. That's why we propose the European Commission to implement a zero plastic to landfill policy. It's feasible. By the way, it's very much in line with the vision of the European Commission and with the vision of all the relevant plastic associations in Europe. And the case of Germany is quite evocative. Germany decided to ban the landfill of plastic in 2005. And you see the red line of the landfill that sharply went down from, and you see here the result, from more than 41% almost to nil. Now in Germany the plastic landfill is less than 1%. But on the other hand, the positive effect in terms of energy recovery and mechanical recycling has been very, very significant in other countries, Austria, Sweden, and we do hope that it could be widespread to all 28 European countries. Finally, our last recommendation is to create, again, I'm talking about the European context, but I think that can be valuable for other industrial contexts, to create a cluster of excellence specifically focused on the plastic value chain. In other words, to create integrated industrial districts for plastic. That's why we propose this, for three basic reasons. First, we need to create critical mass. We need to have bigger companies. I'm not saying that we do not want small and medium enterprises, but we do want more bigger companies, because it's fundamental, considering the competitive context, to be big enough. The second reason is that we need to support the entire value chain of plastic. Plastic is a very peculiar industrial sector. Differently from other sectors, one of the key competitive strengths of plastic within a territory, within a nation, is to have the entire value chain, for the upstream activities to the downstream activities, and to have them supported. It's literally a chain. And the physical proximity is another key advantage for this industry. Finally, again, innovation and cross-fertilization. Industrial districts can create cross synergies, and again, the proximity, the physical proximity, can foster innovation processes very much. In Europe, we do have some example of this cluster of excellence. I put there in the slide, for example, French example, the Plastic Ballet and the Plastico. Plastic Ballet, just to give you some numbers, is an integrated cluster of around 700 companies, 12,000 employees with an aggregate turnover of 2 billion. Has been built with a specific mission to be the reference district for plastic in Europe. And a very interesting feature that this cluster has been built under a PPP scheme, private-public partnership scheme, by involving national government, local authorities, private sector, and plastic associations. The other example is Plastico. Is even a cluster even bigger than Plastic Ballet. We're talking about more than 1,000 companies and 33,000 employees. Just to give you a comparison, 1 out of 5 plastic industry operating in France are within Plastico. The aggregate turnover is 8 billion, but most strikingly probably is that they have within the cluster more or almost 100 R&D facility centers. so you can imagine the critical mass and the power that can impose through innovation processes. Well, I probably talking too much, sorry for that, I apologize, and I thank you for your attention, and I'm open if you want to any questions. Thank you indeed.